Hi everyone, I'm Hannah, the museum educator here at the Transcona Museum. Welcome to the last day of Craft with Us. For the last day of Animal Make as well, we will be making bison hand paintings. So for this craft, you will need a variety of paintbrushes. We're using 5 different colors, so keep that in mind. And as you can see, some of the colors will require bigger paintbrushes like the green and the browns, but the white and the black will need smaller paintbrushes because it's more finer detail. So speaking of the paints, you're going to need white paint, brown paint, green paint, and black paint. You'll also need a shade of brown that's darker than the one you have already. So if you have a darker shade of brown, perfect. If not, you can just mix the lighter brown with your black. All right, you're also going to need construction paper of any color. As you can see, I've used green for this demonstration painting, but I'm going to be using blue today just because that way the background will look like the sky, but you can use whatever color you want. All right, so let's get started. So I have my blue construction paper, got my paintbrushes, and I already have my paint laid out. All right, so the first thing we're going to do, this is going to get pretty messy, so definitely have some paper towels at hand too, because the first thing we have to do is paint our hand, completely cover it in paint with our lighter brown color. So I'm just going to take my lighter brown color and my big paintbrush and just grab a big glob and start covering your hand. Make sure you get really good coverage so then you don't have any, I guess, blank spots or gaps when you press your hand onto the paper. Just naturally, there are going to be some gaps because of the curvature of your hands, but we can easily fill those in. Okay. So make sure you get lots on there. All right. So now that my hand is covered in the brown paint, just press your hand onto the middle of the page and press down as hard as you can so that everything kind of gets covered. If you are a kid who has smaller hands, you can definitely do more than one bison, but as you can see, my hand takes up most of the page, so I am going to just be doing the one bison, but do however many your hand allows. All right, so I'm going to lift. Okay. So as you can see, we have my hand shape, and like I said, there's going to be some gaps, but we can just easily fill those in. First, I'm just gonna try and wipe my hand of as much paint as possible, but I probably will have a paint-covered hand for most of this craft with us, but that's fine. I would say definitely wash your hands in between. Okay, well, that's the most I can get off right now. It's mostly dry anyways. Okay, so now let's work on filling in our gaps. So take your lighter brown color again and just kind of gently dab it over the line of your fingers so that there's no gaps. Go. Do that for all your fingers and for your palm as well. So why did I choose, or why are we making a bison hand painting today? Well, the bison has been used to represent Manitoba since 1905. It's on our coat of arms. It is the official symbol of the Manitoba provincial government. It is the designated mammal on our emblem. And it also represents the Indigenous peoples of Manitoba who used bison for food and for clothing. All right, so just filling that in. You can kind of make your finger tracings a bit wider just because that's going to be your bison's legs. Okay, perfect. So this is what I have all filled in. So the next step we're going to do is, you can kind of see it here, but you're going to end up painting, the painting's going to be upside down from the way you put your hand. So this is the way that you're going to paint from, because this will, your thumb will be the bison's tail. We're going to paint in the head here, and these are the bison's legs. All right, but before we do that, we can draw in, or sorry, paint in our grass in between our bison's legs. So take your fresh paintbrush, get your green paint, and start painting in some grass. I'm going to draw the line of the grass from probably about a quarter up from where my pinky ended, just so that all of the legs look as if they're standing on the grass. I'm sure some of you have probably seen a bison before. They have some at the zoo, and I know there's some bison farms not too far from Transcona. Or you may have seen one just in the wild. All right. So I'm just painting in my grass. Be careful not to paint over your bison's legs. It's funny, the bison is known scientifically in zoology as bison. That's the name of their, that's their classification. They're called bison. Okay. Time to get these in between spots of the fingers. All right, just gonna try and even out my grass a bit. There we go. So my bison is now in the grass. I did get a little bit of green on my finger, like I said, exactly not to do, but it might happen, so I'm just gonna paint over that. Okay, so now let's paint on the bison's head as well as kind of their fur coat that goes on their front half. So for that, we will use the dark brown color. So if you have a paint that's darker brown than the one you used for your hand, that's great. If not, just mix the paint you used for your hand with some black and you'll get dark brown. So basically I'm just going to start by making a line down the, not middle, but just past the middle of my bison's body. So as you can kind of see, the darker paint starts there. And I'm just going to paint towards where we're going to put the bison's head. So away from your thumb print. Okay. And then you're just going to extend that dark brown coat to the two front legs. So the ones on the opposite side of where the bison's tail is going to be. Just extend it down a little bit so it looks as if the fur is covering parts of their leg, which are also our fingers. Okay. So once you've done that, we're going to start extending the brown coat outwards to make a head. You can kind of make whatever shape you want, but bisons do have kind of a hump above their head's shaped like this, and then they kind of have a lower part, kind of a hanging part from their chin. So if you can kind of just trace that out the best as you can, doesn't have to be perfect. Your bison can look however you want your bison to look. But I'm just going to make the hump at the top before I draw on my head. Okay. So I made kind of a hump here. And then I'm going to draw my head. I would say it's kind of like an oval shape outwards. Okay. Kind of like that. You can extend it a bit farther. And then I'm going to draw the lower part of the neck. So I'm just going to kind of make a triangle by the legs. So I'm just going to keep extending my head so actually the head protrudes more. Okay. So this is kind of the shape that I have. So as you can see, I've got the hump, and then the head, and then kind of the part that hangs from below their head. So we'll let that dry for a couple, for a minute or so, but we'll move on to make their little fur part on their tail with the dark brown color. So take your dark brown color and draw a circle on the end of where you put your thumbprint. Okay, so I've got my little tail puff, and now it's time to draw in our details on the face. So we draw nose, eyes, horns, ears, and then some details of the fur on their chin. So I'm just gonna let mine dry a little bit more because it's still fairly wet. So while we let that dry for a couple more minutes, I want to talk about how we have a taxidermied baby bison in our collection here at the museum. So it was donated by the Manitoba Museum, and there was really no information on when it was taxidermied or how the Manitoba Museum acquired it. But just to be safe, taxidermy before the 80s often used arsenic, and it can shed the arsenic over time. So the baby bison remains wrapped in plastic. It does not go on display because we haven't gotten it tested, and as a precaution in case there is arsenic leaking from it, we have it covered and nobody will ever touch it or handle it. Yeah, but that's a little interesting tidbit of information that kind of relates to our craft today. It is a really cute bison, and it sucks that it can't really go on display unless maybe we get it tested one day and it comes back negative for arsenic, but just to be safe, we keep it off display. But we have a lot of other taxidermied animals. If you're interested in seeing some of those, we have some on display. Yeah, so stop by the museum if you're interested in seeing any of these animals. All right. So I'm going to take one of my small paint brushes and dip it into the black paint. And what I'm going to do is draw the horns out from the top of the bison's head. So just kind of drawing a crescent moon type shape as the horn. I'm doing one on each side. So there we have our bison's horns. And then we're gonna also take the black paint and draw a little ear on the side of the bison's head like this. So I'm just going to kind of go towards the middle of the head and make a teardrop shape for the ear. All right, so now that we have our ear, it's time for the eyes. So once again, dip in your black paint and draw a little circle for the eye at the front of your bison's head. And then the last thing to do is draw your bison's nose. So take the black paint and draw a little circle on the tip. So there you have your bison's head. You can also, with your black paint, draw some details of the kind of chin fur. So I'm going to do that. I'm just gonna kind of draw some lines at the end of it, leaving space because I'm also gonna add white paint in between. All right. So we've added all of our black paint details, and now it's time to put in our white paint details. So take another small paintbrush, a fresh one, so the black and the white don't get all mixed together. Dip it in your white paint and just draw some white details wherever you feel is necessary, but I'm going to be putting some at the end of the horn closest to the head, and in the ear and in the chin fur. So I'll start with the horns. Okay. Now moving on to the ears. And now the chin. I'm just going to redo some of the black on the chin part. There we go. All right, and here we have our Bison hand painting. Feel free to put whatever details you want in the background. I'm just gonna leave mine blank because it looks like the sky. Maybe you should put a sun, some clouds, whatever you want, or if you have multiple bisons because your hands are smaller than mine, definitely feel free to put those in. There you have it. So thank you so much for joining me on this Craft With Us journey. If you've watched videos in the past or since the beginning, I really appreciate it. I had so much fun making crafts with all of you on Facebook Live and on YouTube and Instagram this summer. Definitely keep an eye out on the museum's upcoming events and activities. They do programming throughout the whole year, whether it be educational programming, fundraising events, obviously COVID permitting, craft events. So keep your eye out, and Craft With Us will return next summer. So thank you so much, and I hope you enjoyed the Craft With Us Summer 2021 series. Have a great day and have a great rest of your summer.